Have you ever really stopped to think about how you read? We usually see it as this one-way street. An author writes something, and we just take it in. But what if reading was more like a hunt? Or maybe a conversation? Or what if it was an act of creation itself? Today, we're going to dive into two radically different, but you'll see surprisingly similar ideas about reading that might just change everything you thought you knew. So it all starts with this really bizarre piece of advice from the legendary beat writer William S. Burroughs. He says he learned this exercise from a mob boss of all people. The goal? See everyone on the street before they see you. And if you practice this enough, he claimed, you basically become invisible. Okay, so what in the world does becoming invisible on the street have to do with reading a book? Well, for Burroughs, this wasn't just some party trick. It's a whole metaphor for a really powerful way of engaging with the world, and especially with the written word. It's all about seeing what everybody else misses. Burroughs had a name for his method: creative reading. And honestly, it's an active, almost predatory approach. The reader isn't some passive member of the audience. No, the reader is a hunter, stalking the text for clues, for weaknesses, for all the things that are hidden just between the lines. This idea completely flips reading on its head. It's not about consumption, it's about interrogation. Creative reading means you're not just following the plot. You're actively on the lookout for the gaps, the subtext, those little mysteries the author left behind, whether they meant to or not. So how does this actually work in practice? Well, Burroughs applied this exact lens to classic literature. Let's take a look at his analysis of Joseph Conrad's famous novel, Lord Jim. While most of us would focus on the main character, Jim, Burroughs was drawn to something else entirely. See, instead of the main story, Burroughs gets obsessed with this minor character, Brierly, who commits suicide for reasons the book just never fully explains. For Burroughs, this isn't some flaw in the novel. No, it's the most fascinating part. It's a loose thread that he can't wait to pull on. Burroughs was convinced that authors are often cheating a little bit, leaving things out. So for a creative reader, the whole point is to hunt for those omissions. The mystery is the message. And it goes even deeper than that. He wasn't just finding what was missing, he was actively adding his own spin. He actually argued that parts of The Great Gatsby, the Great American Tragedy, are very funny, especially the scenes with Tom Buchanan. He was literally rewriting the tone of the book inside his own head. All right, let's hit the fast forward button. We're jumping from Burroughs' solitary analog world straight into the 21st century. Because today, reading is rarely a lonely act. We're all connected, we're all digital, and the reader has become part of this huge, sprawling network. So where Burroughs was this lone hunter finding gaps in a physical book, the modern reader is part of a massive, collaborative digital community. And they aren't just finding the gaps, they are actively filling them with brand new creations. And that brings us to our second visionary, an educator named Adam Mackey. He was inspired by Thoreau, who wanted to live deliberately, and Mackey wanted to teach deliberately in our modern world. He saw that the way we all read and write had fundamentally changed, and our education system needed to catch up. Mackey's whole approach, which he calls new literacies, isn't just some small update. We're talking about a whole new toolkit with a brand new vocabulary for how we interact with what we read. So new literacies is really just a way of recognizing that meaning isn't just trapped in printed words on a page anymore. It's created with a mix of text, images, sound, and video. And the really crucial part, it's often created together in conversation with other people online. The tools of this new world are probably pretty familiar to you. I mean, think about things like fan fiction, where readers literally write their own stories about characters they love. His approach also uses multimodal pedagogy, which is just a fancy way of saying that learning should use all sorts of media, not just text, to create meaning. These aren't just hobbies. They are incredibly powerful new forms of reading and writing. Remember the old school book report? It was this final product, a summary you handed in, and that was it. Well, the blog report turns that into a dynamic, ongoing process. It becomes a live conversation where students can process ideas, ask questions, and build meaning together as they're reading. Reading and writing happen at the same time as a collaborative act. So on one hand, we've got the lone wolf, Burroughs, hunting for mysteries in the margins. And on the other, we've got the digital communities of Mackey, building whole new worlds together. I mean, they seem like total opposites, right? A solitary reader versus a social network. But what if they're just two sides of the very same coin? This quote from Mackey is everything. He argues that new literacies aren't about throwing out the fundamentals. It's about taking these timeless principles of writing and analysis and applying them to new mediums. It's evolution, not revolution. So, we start with Burroughs, right? The individual investigator, pencil in hand, deconstructing a book to find its hidden truths. And we end up here with a global community of readers using digital tools to collaborate, expanding stories into new fan fictions, podcasts, you name it. And even though there are massive technological and cultural shifts separating these two worlds, that fundamental impulse driving both of them, it's exactly the same. Both Burroughs and Mackey, in their own totally unique ways, teach us that reading should never, ever be passive. It's a call to action, a call to question, to interpret, to challenge, and ultimately to create something new yourself. So the next time you pick up a book or you're scrolling through an article, just ask yourself, are you just a consumer or are you a creator? Whether you're finding the humor in a tragedy or you're writing the next chapter of a story online, the power to rewrite is in your hands. So how are you going to use it?